screen. Can you see my PowerPoint and can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope you're all well, inshallah. So my topic today, well, my name is Erum Jaffri, and the topic today that we'll be discussing is managing online classes. It's quite similar and it does link to the first session that we had this morning. So you will hear some sort of overlaps, but inshallah, we'll build on what we discussed this morning a bit further as we go through the slides, inshallah. So just to begin with our session outline, I will begin with a bit of an introduction about myself. We'll talk about effective online lessons, building a rapport with your pupils, so relationship with the pupils, the learning environment, lesson structure, how we can have the pupils engaged, behavior management, and we'll touch very briefly a little bit on safeguarding, and then inshallah we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So to begin with, I would just like to get you all involved. So I'd like to share a poll with you just to get an idea of how many of you have taught online sessions and how confident you feel. So we have asked this question. So we did get some data previously about how many of you have taken online sessions, but I'd like to know, as well, how you feel about these online sessions. Okay, that's good. Excellent. So, I mean, this is also one of those ways to get the children engaged at the beginning of the session. Put up a poll so that everybody is getting interacting with the session. And I will be asking you to do a few things. I mean, not as much because there's not very much time, but I will try to get you engaged as well as we go along. Brilliant. So a lot of you, most of you have done some online teaching, and so you probably use different platforms. As was mentioned earlier, MUS does use Zoom, and it has been working well. A lot of places use Zoom. Schools are using Teams and Google Classrooms as well. Okay, and I can see that most of you are either average or quite confident about teaching, so that's good. Okay, excellent. We haven't really had much choice. We've had to come into this online teaching anyway. So, okay, thank you. I will just get rid of the. Okay, so just a bit of an introduction about myself. I'm a qualified teacher, and I've now been teaching for nearly 18 years. I've taught in, and I've also run a local madrasa. I've delivered different, various training courses, including things like safeguarding and different aspects of teaching. Currently, I'm an assistant head teacher where I'm overseeing the primary department of our school. I've planned and implemented full online teaching since lockdown. So actually, as soon as our school went into, as soon as lockdown came in March, we had to go into full online schooling. So, I've been planning and preparing and also evaluating and, adjusting the online teaching. Alhamdulillah, we had that time from September to December where we were on site. But then again, obviously, we've been back online. So I've learned quite a lot through the experiences that we've had. I do currently run, weekly Islamic sessions for primary children. I have taught with MUS before as well, but just due to time limitation, I've been unable to do that recently. And also, I've been a consultant for, a recently opened new full-time online school. So I have been working with the online side of things as well as on-site teaching. So we did cover something like this a little bit earlier, where we looked at online versus on-site. So just to, sort of go over, but also just a reminder that online teaching, I mean, there's a lot of benefits for online teaching. We found over the, with our experience that the content that we cover within our online sessions is much greater than what you can cover in the classroom, because there are so many distractions, so many other things happening in the classroom that you often aren't able to deliver as much as you would have liked to. So the content coverage can be quite vast, especially if you've prepared and are organized. Children can join in from any location, and now this was a problem with madrasas, them being so far away from home. Lots of children and parents spending the whole of Saturday traveling to get to a madrasa. Also, the way technology has progressed, there's so many resources. Even when we're on site, we're using all of these technical resources that we can use obviously online more easily. And a lot of these resources have instant feedback. So you can give a quiz and children can see straight away, are they right, are they wrong, rather than waiting for the teacher to come around and check. A lot of innovative methods of teaching can be used. So again, linking into those resources, you can have a variety of activities and methods that you can use. And also one of the big things is behavior management. Obviously, it's much easier online. You have a lot of behavior management issues, obviously, in the classroom. If you're in control of your online classroom, you can definitely keep on top of, you really shouldn't have behavior management issues at all. However, I mean, I will say as a teacher, there is nothing like being in the classroom with your students. You can do practical tasks, obviously that face-to-face interaction. You need to see the children, how they feel when you tell them something, that physical presence, for the child to see you and you to be able to see them. The constant monitoring, obviously you can walk around, you can look at their work, which is an advantage. The relationship you have with the children and the pupils interaction. So these are sort of the, let's say, problem areas or difficulties that we have to try and work on when we are delivering our online classes. And it's not impossible, we can, and hopefully through some of the information I share or the ideas I share today, we can think about how we can work on some of these areas. Though it won't be a full, substitution, but hopefully it will work to make it better. Now, for effective online sessions, some key points, and a lot of you, like you said, like I saw, have been doing online lessons, so I'm sure you're aware of this, but, really important to be prepared, as is for an on-site lesson. You need to have your resources ready, your plan ready. What are you teaching? Just really be organized so that it's no last minute sort of fluffing around or looking confused or being unsure of what to do. Also, be very clear with the instructions. So children need direct, clear instructions. Tell them exactly what you want them to do. Obviously, in a nice manner, in a way that they will want to do it, but make sure it's clear. Being on time, making sure you're not late, obviously, very important. Check your mic and cameras before classes. And I know we spoke earlier, mentioned a little bit earlier about pupils putting on their cameras. Definitely teachers must have their cameras on because children need to see you, need to see who's talking to them, need to have some interaction. And ideally, especially with, I'd say, younger children, we need to see them on their cameras because you don't know what's happening on the other side of the screen. I mean, sometimes you'll have people in a session, they'll be, I don't know, we might be cooking in the kitchen while we're listening to this, or, there'll be other things happening. So is the child concentrating? Are they able to interact and get the best from the session? Conduct a practice class and make sure you've had some practice before actually going into a class. And obviously, it seems like a lot of you have already done some online classes. Also here, I'd say if you're using a new resource, so we mentioned quite a few different apps and programs or websites that you can use, make sure you've practiced using them beforehand. Don't, use it for the first time with the children because that just delay the lesson and it, loses the concentration of the children. If you want the children to have anything, if you want them to be prepared with anything, please do, get them to have things from beforehand. If they need the MUS book, make sure they have the MUS book. If they need pencil, if they need a specific resource, you want them to make a poster that session, they need coloring pencils, tell them beforehand. Otherwise, they'll be spending your lesson trying to get those things ready. I just saw a question. I think someone pointed out that some parents with children, they turn off the camera. That's fine. I mean, I'm not saying we have to insist, but ideally, it's best if we can have cameras on. Okay. Sometimes it might be temperamental, so you can have the camera on when you ask a question, so that you can just ask the children to share their camera at that time. Now, the rapport with your pupils is really important. Okay, so you need to build a relationship. As it is on site, it's much, much harder, online, but you need to have a relationship. There's not just a group of children who join you every week for a period of 16 weeks where, you don't have any sort of relationship with them. So you need to use their names. You need to become familiar with their names. You need to ask them questions directly so that they know that you know them, you've acknowledged them. Establish a regular routine. So keep things in a sort of a set pattern so they know. So they know that you're going to start with maybe a quick recap. You might ask them a question about last session. So they know that at the end of the session, you're going to quickly quiz them before they leave. So they are aware of this, routine and things don't shock them or surprise them. Give them lots of positive feedback. It's really important. So they're not seeing you as a person, as a teacher in front of them at the moment. So that whatever you say to them, whatever they're hearing on the other side is really important. I've heard some classes where the teacher said, things like, oh, that's the second time you've asked a question that I've already answered. Now you'll think that child, will he want to ask another question? So we need to think about what we're saying and making sure that we're encouraging the child to communicate with us, to interact in the lesson and engage in the lesson. Lots of positive feedback. So it can just be you saying well done to everybody. It could be saying specific children's names. It could be giving them a thumbs up. So giving a lot of positive feedback. And I think there were some ideas earlier as well about sharing stickers, digital stickers, and we'll talk about other rewards a bit later too. Making eye contact. So make sure you're looking into the camera when you're teaching. Don't look around or, start talking to somebody else while you are delivering a session. And try and vary your tone. So don't keep it monotonous and, sort of one tone throughout the session. And personalize your lesson. So as you get to know the children, maybe you'll find out there's a couple of boys in your class who really do like football. Maybe a lot of them support one particular football team. Maybe you can, I'm not saying to talk about or, focus so much on that, but maybe you can link that into some of the, theory that you're teaching them. Maybe if you're talking about leaders, the role of a leader, you can talk about the captains of their football team. So make sure you try and personalize the lesson to the children that you are teaching. So it's about getting to know them. And the only way you can get to know them is by asking them some form of questions. I have a question asking if the child is shy and not confident to answer. So we can encourage them as much as possible. If they don't want to speak, perhaps you can ask them to chat, so they can type it in the chat. Maybe they can let you know after a session. Maybe they can message you. So there are some other ways. Maybe they can write it down and show it on the camera. So it's working with the child and seeing what's best for that child. Now, workspace is really important as well, thinking about where are the children working, because we don't actually know what's happening on the other side of the screen sometimes. Children are learning, they might be in the middle of the kitchen while the rest of the family is eating. So do they have enough space? This is all thinking about their mental well-being and how focused and how prepared they are for your lesson. So the best thing we can do, obviously we can't control it because they're not in our classroom, but the best thing we can do is advise the parents and the children to have a quiet space in which that they can learn, making sure there's enough light so when the cameras are on, they can see clearly, or even when they're working, we can see clearly. Thinking about how the other space is used, so requesting that maybe parents can make sure that other children maybe are not having an online session in the same area, because it can be very distracting when there's two classes happening at the same time. Also, getting prepared, so getting the children, if they're old enough to prepare themselves, or if they are young, then asking the parents to help them be prepared, so have everything with them that they need around them in their area. Just like for the children, it's important that we as teachers have a appropriate workspace. Okay, so we need to think about what's in our background. We wouldn't want to have like family pictures or anything that would be, to kind of thinking about our privacy as well. So having clear backgrounds is best, or you can use a virtual background. Thinking of having enough space and light is important as well. And distractions, like if you're normally doing a class, maybe a session, and you're sitting in the living room and you know that at that time your family likes, or your children like to watch a program in there at that time, making sure that you're not in there and you've got enough space and concentration sort of to do your session. And again, being organized. So a bit like I said earlier, be prepared, have all your resources and everything ready that you need. This also includes having things like everything that you're going to share for the session open up on your screen. So like if I'm going to share a YouTube video with you today, then have that ready, open it, play it so I know it's working. So all I need to do is share it. I'm not searching for it during our session. Now, like I said before, the structure and the routine should be clear and regular for your pupils. And we should try and model what we do in an online classroom, an on-site classroom. So, you welcome your children in, give them a brief reminder of the rules. Maybe some might forget, maybe there's someone new. Just remind the children of the rules. In the first few sessions, you may spend a bit longer in establishing these rules and telling them children how to use the rules. So, for example, if you want to use the raise hand option, teaching them maybe how to use the raise hand option if they don't know, or unmuting themselves and muting themselves. Introduce your lesson, talk about what this lesson is going to be about, in which you may also have a recap of the previous session. And then you have your main content for your session, which will then lead on to an activity. So do make sure that you give some delivery of a session and something is going to be done. So don't spend like the whole hour just talking to the children. I mean, this is, something that we're always reminded that we can only actually focus and listen for the amount of minutes of our age. Okay, so if you're thinking about our younger children, 5, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, these are the sort of main concentration time is very limited. So we need to deliver it and let them do something, and then maybe bring them back as well. So give them a quick activity, bring them back. It's a bit more difficult because it's online, but making sure there's this sort of constant, variety within your session. And then also assess. It's very important to assess the lesson, because there's no point in just teaching and then just ending the lesson and coming back next session to move on. What have the children learned in this session? So if you are teaching them the Usul before they left the session, were they able to tell you that there are 5 Usul something quick? Could you share a quiz with them? Can you do a Kahoot? Children love Kahoots. Quizlet, there's different quizzes you can do, or maybe simple, get them to get their cameras on and say how many Asuladin are there. They need to show you 5 fingers. So thinking about how you can assess them before they leave the session. Make sure you've done some sort of recap before the end of the lesson. Now they did some research and online and on-site teaching, and here's sort of what teachers were saying is missing. So we had real communication between the learners, so the learners aren't able to talk and they're not able to discuss things. So we need to provide tasks which can enable this. So how can the children talk to each other about what they're thinking? So if we put a question out there, we can allow the children to give us their input. We need to make sure we let the children give their input. When we're doing this, we should also make sure we don't just always choose the same children, like the child who always puts their hand up maybe, or the child at the top of the list. So if you go by alphabetical order, making sure you have a range of children. So maybe if you start from the top, normally start from the bottom in the next session. Or I'm going to show you a tool that you can use just to pick on children, different names, so that you can try and get everyone involved. Learners need to know what is expected. So like when we give them a task, if I said to them, I want you to make a Suladin tree, let's say, to put, or, I want you to make the tree, I want you to put the Suladin, which are the roots, I want you to draw the roots on. So I've just given them that task verbally. It's very hard for them to visualize what it is that I want them to do. So I'll need to give them, and I need to show them something visual, that this is what I'm thinking of, this is how I'd like you to do it, have a go at doing it like this. Or if you have another idea, you can, use that as well. But they need to see something. How do you expect them to show you what they've done, or actually, present what they've done? Learners enjoy it and are motivated to participate. This is something that we need to make sure we do. So how will they enjoy it? I mean, a lot of the sessions I do, when they know that there's a Kahoot, from the first 2 minutes, the questions start coming. Is there a Kahoot today? Is there a Kahoot today? So make sure you're doing something that's motivating the children, and they want to participate, they want to learn, and they want to do something. So you can gauge that from the children that you're teaching. So you need to find out, maybe you have a group of children who don't really like Kahoot. Maybe there's something else that motivates them. Make sure that you think about, which again is very difficult online, but the different variety of abilities in the group. So the children have come from different stages. Some of them are older, some of them are younger. Some of them haven't done book 1. Some of them have, done book 4, but have decided to come and do book 3 again. So we need to think about the children that are on the other side. Where are their levels? Maybe there might be some children with some special needs, learning needs, that have been put into class. Ideally, it would be good for us as teachers to know that we have a child that has a learning need, so we can cater for them. But as much as possible, the main thing, I mean, we should try and make our sessions, our classes, as inclusive as possible, which means that all children should be able to access it. So make sure you have lots of visual lots of things that you can show. Now, visual doesn't mean just a big, chunk of text. Now, if we want to share text, maybe highlight the keywords for the children, make it accessible as possible, scaffold it. So make maybe those words you think that some children just might not understand. Let's say we have, sometimes I've found that we had children that were about 6 and we've had children that are 12 in the same session. So if you know there's some vocabulary that the, 7-year-olds aren't going to understand, just highlight those beforehand and give them that support if they need it. Okay, so understand where the children are, their different levels, and try and produce something that is accessible to all, but also we do need to think about the challenge on the other side. So it shouldn't also be something really easy that the child, is just not really to their ability. It's something that they'll do in 1 second and really hasn't challenged them. So you should also have in mind that if they can do this, what would I want them to do further? Okay. So understanding your learners, like I've been saying, is really important to know them. The better we understand our learners, the better we are able to differentiate. Okay, so plan learning activities that will engage, interest, and involve them all, and provide the right level of challenge and support. So it's like I was just saying a little earlier. Now, at this point, I would like you all to do a Jamboard. We were talked about, it was introduced a bit earlier today. There is a link here, so I think if I can end this show, and I'll just copy and paste this link into the chat box. And if you can all go into it. Okay, so you should receive a link and it says Jambox. If you can go into that, I'm going to open up the Jambox page so we can see what's happening. Okay, so now if you see here, there's a Jambox page, and I can see that some of you are now joining. Now, my question here is, how can we try to understand our learners? So how can we engage them? How can we make things interesting? I'd like you all, whoever's able to join, take a sticky note. You click on the sticky note app, the thing there, and I'll choose a green, and I would say maybe find out their interests. Okay, and I'll save that and it will go onto my board. Now, it'd be really useful if everyone else who can access it can type in something that they think will be useful for understanding our learners, different ways. So this would be useful for getting children engaged. I can see people joining, so I'm hoping you can add in some words soon. If there's any issues with it not working, then please tell me. Oh, is it in view only? Have you not been able to share? Okay. Okay. All right. So no, you don't need to download the app. Okay. I don't think it's the setting has allowed you to edit. Okay. Sorry. So I should have done that before, but I'm going to just move on because of time. But this is a way that you could get the children engaged so that they can input something. Now, if you have younger children, the younger ones, they might need parental support, and this is something that is something that is required. Really, online learning and remote learning for younger children isn't ideal. We know that, and we do need the parents to be involved with the children's learning. Obviously, we don't want to put lots of pressure on parents. Ideally, for parents, it's better if the child can just get on with things, but sometimes there are some aspects that we need to get parents involved in. Okay, so don't worry about that app, but it's a Jamboard, and basically you go to the link, and if it seems that it wasn't allowing you to edit, but you should be able to add on your own post-its. So is there anyone who can tell me or share in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves, how you would engage children, get them involved?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I'm teaching book 1, and this children are like 6 years old. Mostly we do art, like when the lesson finished, then we do art and craft with them.
Okay.
Like recently we did one on the baby Fatima's birthday came. We just made a cloud,
Okay.
and then we stick the 9 strips underneath, just like a reins.
Okay.
It's a big white cloud, and we write down the 9 divine names of baby Fatima, and then we write it down all the names of it as the children are small. So either if they can write, then they do. Otherwise, sometimes their parents definitely do because they are small.
Yeah.
So parents help them to write down them. Then they color and decorate them like that things.
Yeah, that's lovely. Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. That's very creative. And some others have written, you know, through pictures, talking to them, asking them to give their input. So yeah, that's really useful. Also thinking about activities that they do at school. So I just, thinking off my head, like they will, in English, they'll be learning about writing maybe articles, newspaper articles. Now we've got Imam Ali Alayhi's birthday coming up. Maybe they could be writing a newspaper report about his birth, how people were surprised and shocked of the Kaaba's opening and where he was born. So linking in aspects of their normal learning style and education to interest them. Yep.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So I teach book 2 at the moment, and one way that I've engaged with my kids is with every wiladat and shahadat, I've asked them to create either a poem, to write a poem, a story, a poster, and to bring that to class. And we've spent like
That's nice.
half the lesson going through that. I found that really encouraging. They learn a lot. They like to share. That's really a way of motivating them to speak about what they've created.
Yeah, excellent. And that's a really good point. I mean, children love to share their work. They love appreciation. They love to share it to others. So it's really nice if you can do that. And sometimes we have limited time. Like you said, you use your sessions and you have that allocated time. Sometimes when you're in a session and you've got them to do something, you'd love for them all to share. So for that, you can, like we have those Zoom screens where you have everyone's cameras on, you can just ask them to pick up their work and show on the screen. So everybody has got some sort of acknowledgement of all of their work. We have some points about the whiteboard. Definitely using the whiteboard is really good. Getting the children to write on the whiteboard sometimes, or you're having control of it yourself. Yeah, excellent. I can see brilliant ideas along the side. Thank you. So assessment, again, also is very, very important, and especially online. So assessment for learning is important to set goals for the older children, so the older learners, so they're looking, they know what they look at, something to look forward to, something to look towards, working towards. Younger learners, it gives them a sense of purpose to any work that they're doing, and they love it to know that they've actually achieved something, why they're doing something, and they've achieved it. So we need to be specific to what they need to be learning out of this activity. It's evidence for the children. So parents, once you've got assessments, the parents like to see assessments. I mean, I think our culture, we are very assessment based. We like to see assessments, we like to see things that have been achieved. And for organizations as well. So it's good, to see as an organization how the education is being taught and how it's being understood. So as well as a teacher, we want to know as a teacher, there's no point as as us as a teacher teaching lots and lots of things if none of the children are gaining from it. Yeah. So yeah, a feedback survey is a very good idea. Yeah. Okay, assessment strategy. So you need to design a criteria. You need to tell the children what it is they should be able to do, so they're clear. Dealing with student anxiety about online assessment is really important too. So, I mean, this even links into Kahoot. I mean, initially, I remember when we had Kahoot, you'd have, the younger ones, some children in tears at the end because they didn't win. They're not on the leaderboard. We have to instill in the children that, this is a learning activity. It doesn't matter if you win this, it doesn't matter if you got it right. It's about trying. It's looking at what we can learn on further. Best, good thing about the assessments we do, we can pick up on, any misunderstandings or things that we can clarify or help the children to understand. So dealing with this and ensuring that children understand this, giving them that reassurance that it's okay to get things wrong, have a go, try it, work on it, and inshallah you'll be able to do it if you did get it wrong. Peer assessment is really good. So getting the children to give some assessment or some feedback to other children. So let's say a child has created a piece of work and they've shown it on the camera. Now you can get another child online to give some feedback. we try to stick to something called like a sandwich rule, okay? Because some children can, be quite blunt, and they might, be upset a child maybe by the feedback they'll give. But if we have something called sandwich rule, it's where you give a positive statement, then something perhaps that they could work on, and then another positive. So you're trying to give statements that children can work on, but also, buffering it up with the positive side of it. And then obviously there's online tools like quizzes that you can do that give, you get right or wrong straight away, so you know whether you've got it right or wrong. Okay, just because of time, moving on quickly. Content engagement. So like I said, asking questions, get the pupils to read things aloud. So if you have a text, don't just read it all to them. Get your different children to read different parts, and children generally love to read. If you have a child who doesn't really want to read and they say, Miss, I don't want to read, that's okay, but try and get as many, at least you're giving them that opportunity. Let them draw. Maybe if you have a crossword or an activity, let them draw on the screen. You do have to control this, and the best thing about being online is that you can just stop that facility if their children do get silly. You can get them to write something down and show it, or then maybe they can answer the question in chat. So you could say, who's the quickest person to tell me where Imam Ali alayhi salam was born? And you can see in the chat, who's answered that question. Now, a new feature that is becoming very popular as well is breakout rooms. Now, I'd say this is probably upper primary and older children. It's where you can group the children into a room. So Zoom has this and Teams has this as well. I'm sure Google Classroom does too, but I'm not so familiar with them. You can put the children into groups and they can discuss something and present it. So just like in the classroom, you'd put children in a group to work on something, you can put these children into a group. Now, this does mean that they're not fully supervised all the time, but you as a teacher can pop into every room and just check that the children are on task. You can end the rooms whenever you want. So this is a really good tool to use. And what I'd suggest is, there's so many YouTube videos teaching us these skills. And if you just type in whichever, if you're using Teams or Zoom breakout rooms, you can learn how to use them. And they're really good. The children like it too, because they feel like it gives them a little bit of independence. Yeah. And sharing on the screen. So it doesn't always have to be, they send you something or they send you a picture or they have to wait till the next session. Just let them put their camera on and share something so you can see it. Now, this one's a nice thing to get a nice, a website. Let me come out. Actually, I won't go into it because of the time, but basically there's a link here. So when the slides are shared, you'll be able to go to directly to the website. You type in the names of the students in your class and you click on it and the wheel goes round and the spinner will show you a name and you can select that name, and maybe that's the person you're going to ask the question to today. Maybe that person is going to read the text today. This way, all the children know that it could be them. So, it doesn't mean that, let's say Fatima was in the class and she didn't put her hand up and she didn't want to say anything, so she'll just stay quietly. Is it possible? It's possible that she will be picked on and she'll be asked something to try and get them engaged. Jamboard as well. So this is what it would look like if everyone had been able to, hopefully put on their post-its. We would have got, some words from everybody. This means that everybody has incorporated some information, and then we can see it as a collective, class, what has come through. Other resources and ideas that you could do is you could do virtual tours. So like I said, like we've got 13th Rajab coming up, Imam Ali alayhi salam's birthday. You might want to take the children on a virtual tour in Najaf of Imam Ali alayhi salam's shrine. So you can show them a video. You just type in YouTube virtual tours or just, a tour of and you can get the video and you can just show the children, it's really nice actually. We don't even have to take the children there. You can show them pictures and see, you get the feeling of what it's like. Like I said before, you could get them to write newspaper articles, creating posters, conducting an interview. So making these activities engaging, and they can still happen online. Yeah, but we can still conduct them and do these online. Now, behavior management. An important aspect of behavior management is to be very clear of what you expect. Okay, so for example, if I didn't want, like when I asked if you want to unmute yourselves and speak, you can do. That was me telling you that that's okay for you to do. So I need to be clear. If I don't expect the children and I don't want the children to keep unmuting themselves and saying something, then I need to be clear to them. I need to tell them beforehand, you need to stay on mute. If you want to say something, then please raise your hand. So they need to be clear about what I expect. I can't expect the children to know what I'm wanting, and every teacher is different. So just because one teacher's or they've already done book 2 doesn't mean you don't need to set your own rules for book 3. We need to make sure we make clear to the children what we expect. do you want them to raise a hand? Do you want them to unmute themselves? Your expectations of the camera and mic, and like we touched on it before a little bit, we have to be sensitive. So maybe there's a child who can't put their camera on, maybe they don't have a camera, maybe there is some issue, so that's fine. But as much as possible, if you want them to, encourage them to use their camera. Comment box, messages can be shared. So like here, you can share your messages at the moment with everyone. Sometimes I've been in some classes where some children have started to be silly, and then they started asking each other what their ages are and where they live. Okay, and then I don't really want that conversation happening while I'm teaching a lesson. So then I can go and I can change it and say that the chat can only happen with the host only, so only I can see the chat. As well as with muting and unmuting, you can have a setting where only I can unmute or they can unmute. So learn these techniques, and then also make it clear to the children what you're expecting, that they can chat to you, or if you want them to be able to chat with everyone. So again, yeah, like I said, make your rules clear. There are so many of these, I've just taken this off the internet, lots of samples like this around at the moment, so plenty that you can be using. Kahoot, like I said, it is a good tool. Children are loving it at the moment. I'm not really, sometimes there are some children who maybe don't like it, perhaps. Sometimes it might be internet issues which cause them to miss out, which can be frustrating. But again, I think it's more about a learning curve and teaching the children that, try and to keep going. So even if they're not, getting on the scoreboard, tell them that, you keep answering the questions. It's more about how many you get right. And with Kahoot, what's really good is you can see a report at the end. So sometimes after the sessions, I'll go back and I'll look at the reports, and I can see like which questions the children didn't quite understand. So if I've asked a question on the fluidine and asked something like, is Tawheed a fluidine, and the children have, majority of the children have said yes, then I think, okay, I need to go back and this is my next session, I need to clarify this. So it's a good assessment tool to give you information as a teacher as well. So make sure you use that side of it too, apart from the fun activity side. If you find that your children aren't, linking with this game, or they don't really like it, then there are, Quizlet, there's lots of other ways of doing this as well. Communication, really, really very important. And it is so much harder, obviously, because we are online. But the big factor here is thinking about parents, especially for the younger children. Parents sometimes are working. Obviously, they're doing their own thing in the house sometimes. They're not just sitting with the child all the time. But you will have some parents who do actually sit with their child for that whole MUS session and are supporting their child, which is great. But we can't expect all parents, to be doing that. So the communication with parents is very important. So whichever system, that you are using, and it could be via emails, parents' emails. So tell the parents, let's say you are going to build something next week with the children and you need them to have a selection of cardboard boxes. Email the parents, let them know, message them, tell that they know that this is what's required. A good one, and I don't know if it's being used at the moment, but we did start to use it with MUS, is Class Dojo, and a lot of schools are using this. You'll see it maybe with your children when they're at school. This is really great for communication, but also for reward. So you can have like a dojo winner after a few sessions who's got the most points. You can give them points for submitting work, even simple things like, answering questions. So you can give them a lot of reward through this as well. They can also submit work on this app. So this is quite nice because it actually builds up a portfolio. It's a digital photo portfolio, so you can sort of make a book of these things. Okay, so okay, I think you might not be using it at the moment, but I think as long as you have this communication with parents, are they going to email you the work? And if the children do email you the work, please, make sure you give them some feedback, because sometimes the children just feel like I'm just sending in work and nothing's happening. So maybe share it in your next session, or just mention those names of the children who have submitted some work to you, so they get some acknowledgement. And I just want to obviously mention, safeguarding. As teachers, anyone who is working with children, we have a duty of care. It's more difficult because it's online, but it's not impossible. And we do need to keep a lookout for any areas or anything that might be concerning for us. So, if you notice, attendance patterns, maybe a child has attended every session and all of a sudden has dropped off. Is there a reason for this? Maybe some comments that children are making. So, I've been in sessions sometimes where you know, a child just keeps saying something like this child kept telling us that she was at home alone, you know, and then it was nothing to do with the lesson, but perhaps this child felt the need to keep repeating this. So there's, you know, what comments are the children making? Is there something that alarms you, or, you know, makes you a bit worried? And if you do, then there should be somebody that you can talk to, safeguarding lead, or somebody who's, you know, in the management, so you can ask them, or just, you know, kind of highlight this concern, because you wouldn't want there to be a concern or something happening and us to not be able to sort of raise or notice it. Okay. Yep, and so that's pretty much my slide. Sorry, I had to rush through because of the time. My email address is here if you have any questions. You're you know, welcome to email me. Just, you know, to finish off, just ask if there are any questions that you would like to ask.
Salam, sister. Just a quick one.
Yeah.
What would be the recommended consequence for students persistently misbehaving during the online lesson?
Can I ask what sort of misbehavior you're thinking?
For example, the chatting, you mentioned that you can always stop that. That's good. I don't know, because honestly, what would be sort of example?
Yeah. I think like a good idea is to talk to that child. So just to make them aware that, because they might not know what they're doing is wrong. So to clarify to them that, you know, you don't really want them to be doing this in your session. Give them a warning, maybe another warning if you have to. Then explain to them that you'll probably, and there should then be some communication with the parents, because I think parents should be aware that something is happening, that the child is not listening and following the rules. And if you've made your rules clear, so let's say it is that, you know, there should be no chatting. If they are not following that rule, you've given them warnings, then you do speak to the parents and you do let them know that, look, if they aren't following the rules, then perhaps they need to be, you know, they have to be removed from that session. That would obviously be them. We don't want to get to that point. So we want to give them warnings. We want to work with them. Maybe we can find out why it is that they keep chatting on the chat and try and work through it with them. But then, you know, because then other children then see that you've set a rule and this child is continuously disobeying this rule, then that does kind of, you know, it's not very good as a teacher to be, you know, seeing that either. So try and working with this child, and then maybe it might be that you just remove them for that session, and hopefully they'll learn the lesson and come back properly the next session. But ideally you talk to them, you inform their parents, talk to the parents, and whatever organization you're in, you talk to their management too about steps that you're taking, so everyone's aware.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, you could keep them behind after the session. Yeah, that's another idea. Any other questions? So it would be good if everyone could just, you know, think, if you want to share, you can, but, you know, think about one thing that hopefully you can take away from the session that we did today, and maybe one thing that you might want to change or improve on if you already have been doing online classes. If you wish to share, you can. I think we have 2 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Walaikum salam.
Just want to ask, because we are not going in madrasa, and as the now inshallah the month of Rajab, like Imam Ali's birthday coming, mid Shaban programs coming, if we have to look like online play, like so is there any ideas about it, that how children can perform their parts online, and anything, if you or anyone has any idea? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. If anyone has any ideas, you could, you know, welcome to share it in the chat. The two things that I was just thinking, and we're planning actually at the moment, is escape rooms. Online escape rooms are quite a big thing at the moment, and you just need Google Forms to do that. And we'd be creating an escape room where the children have to escape from the room to get to Najaf. They get at the Golden Gate, so they're trying to get there. So they have to solve problems on the way. Another idea is like a scavenger hunt that you can have. So you ask them questions about the Imam, and the answer, let's say, who is Imam Ali alayhi salam's father, Abu Talib, so that you need to find something in your house that begins with that first letter, and come and show it on the camera. So you can do activities like this. I'm not sure if anyone else would like to share any ideas.
Sorry, sister, what did you say before? Escape room? What does it mean?
Yeah. So escape room is like children, well, basically you're entered the virtual sort of, you're entered into a classroom where you have to try and escape it. So you have to try and get out, but you can only get out by answering specific questions. So in that you have like, you have to build a scenario that, you know, you're traveling, let's say you're traveling from London to Najaf, and each step you have to answer a question about Imam Ali alayhi salam or his life. And if you get it right, then you move on to the next step. You have to try and free yourself. It's like a puzzle.
Thank you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Walaikum salam.
Question. Lovely lecture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very informative. With this escape room, do you use an app or as a website, a tool?
Google Forms. So Google Forms have quite a few samples. So they have one for like, we used one for, what do you call it? It's kind of, there's lots of different samples. Hogwarts. They, you know, they've got different examples. So it's basically you just use a blank Google form and you ask a question that's like a quiz. So you have to get the quiz answer correct to move on.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you.